Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel Skinny on Carbs. My name is Andrea, and on this channel I try to use my background in biology, histopathology and naturopathic medicine to help you live the life that you dream of and deserve. Okay, let's get into it. So you said you want to lose weight and you found out that carbs, namely simple carbs, can help you lose weight. However, you also know that losing weight is a game of calories, okay? It's what you've always heard, you calories in, calories out. You have to count calories in order to lose weight. You need to measure what you're eating in order to lose weight, okay? And what you've heard on one side is you have to be in a calorie deficit. So you need to eat less, right? You need to figure out what your caloric needs are and you need to slash that by like 500 or 1,000 or infinity and beyond, who knows. But I know you've heard that, okay? You've heard that you have to slash calories. And then on the other side, you've heard, well, don't slash the calories. You're going to screw up your metabolic health. You're going to slow down your metabolism. And the way to lose weight is to ramp up your metabolism by cranking the calories, right? So I know you guys have heard those two arguments. And I mean, it could be quite confusing because both sides sound so convincing. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what to do. You've tried one way and it worked, but it didn't work because the weight came back, and then you tried another way and you're not losing weight. And what do? Okay, and I know you guys are looking to hear an answer from me. Is it slashing the calories or is it ramping it up? And I'm here to tell you guys, I'm sorry to say, that both strategies are correct. Okay, both strategies are correct, and let me tell you why. And then I'm going to tell you what you should be doing instead, okay? Because I have an alternative for you. That's the kind of gal I am. Okay, so both strategies are correct. Going into calorie deficit by slashing calories, you will lose weight. You've seen it before. You've seen it time and time again. That is not incorrect. That will work. It will happen for you, okay? However, there's a downside to doing it that way. And the downside is, well, it might not be a downside depending on what your perspective is. But the thing that people usually warn against when it comes to slashing the calories is that you are down regulating your metabolism, okay? And the opposite argument of that is to ramp up your metabolism. But I'm here to tell you that it really doesn't matter which strategy you employ. Both of them will work because your body is adaptable. Okay? Your body is adaptable. Your body will upregulate or downregulate your basal metabolic rate to match your behavioral patterns, your eating patterns, your activity patterns. Your body will adjust, okay? And that's why both methods work, because what happens is in the adjustment period is where the weight loss happens. So whether you're down regulating or up regulating, it doesn't matter. Your body, it takes time to catch up, and in that playing catch up, that's when you start dropping weight. However, at some point it resets. It resets higher or it resets lower. Your body has the ability to do that. If you didn't, how do you expect that we would have survived as a species for as long as we did, okay? So, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, because I'm not the only one, right? This is not some new method that I've discovered. But in my opinion, it really makes no sense to play the calorie game. That's why I don't even talk about calories that much. I do because it's in the lexicon of so many people that are dieting or into health and wellness, okay? Everybody's talking about calories, but it doesn't serve you, because your body's going to adjust. If you drop the calories, your body is going to downregulate the basal metabolic rate, right? It'll drop your metabolic rate to match what you're now doing, okay? And it's the same thing when you ramp it up. Your body will play catch up. It can do that. It's how you survive, okay? So, if I'm telling you that you shouldn't play the calorie game, and that the calorie game, either way you play it, you're going to lose weight, it just depends on whether or not you commit to it, okay? Like, are you going to commit to gorging and eating the calories, or are you going to commit to restricting and starving yourself? I don't know what you want to do, but if you commit to one of those strategies, it will work out for you in terms of losing weight. But it's a bit neurotic. Like, you have to count the calories, okay? And you have to figure out what your caloric needs are. And so this is why I'm saying, in my opinion, I think it's a losing game, because first off, you're going to have to figure out right now in this moment, what is your RMR? What's your BMR? What's your basal metabolic rate? Where are you metabolically in terms of your needs? You have to calculate that. And then on top of that, you still have to calculate the calories in the food accurately. Nobody can do that. You can't do that. I can't do that. Like I said, unless you're hooked up to some machine that's doing that for you, it's not practical for the average person, okay? And are you going to pay for a DEXA scan every other day to figure out what your metabolic needs are in that day so you can calculate how many calories you need to eat for the day? No, you're not going to do that. Now, I know that there's some machine by Hume, I think it's by Hume, where it's apparently it's very accurate, right? Where it will measure on a daily basis your basal metabolic rate. And that thing is going for like $200-$300. But even if it gives you your basal metabolic rate, okay, basal metabolic rate is just that, baseline, okay? That's just your metabolic rate if you are like comatose, if you're not doing anything. That's what it means, okay? It's not going to tell you how much calories you need to go brush your teeth, to take a piss, to stand and cook dinner, to walk to get the mail. Those all take energy too. Like, that's all calculate. Like, you still need to figure out what your caloric needs are for that as well. And that's not going to tell you what that is. And even if it could tell you what that is, how are you going to calculate the calories accurately in the foods that you're eating? Okay? Because remember, unless you're eating something straight out of a lab, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to tell precisely the calorie in one banana from another banana. Okay, you can't do that, because if something is tree ripened, like you're talking about fruits, for instance, if it's tree ripened, two bananas aren't going to be the same. One banana might be tree ripened, another one might have been picked too early, so the sugar density is not going to be the same. The soil wasn't the same. It's just you're playing a losing game. I would not play that game, okay? You can't win. You're not gonna win. And even if you play the game accurately and you lose the weight, remember I told you that your metabolism will adjust. It will catch up, because you're not smart. Like, you gotta forget about that. You're not smart. Your body is the calculator. Your body is the chemist. Your body is going to figure out what you're doing sooner or later, and it will adjust, okay? So at some point, your body is going to adjust its basal metabolic rate, and then you're going to plateau once again. So it's not about figuring out the calories, and it's not about calculating the calories. Forget that. Forget about it. Put that to the side. So if I'm telling you that it's not about the calories, then what is it about? Weight loss is really about hormones and hormone health. That's the real game of weight loss. It's about getting your hormones in balance, okay? That's the name of the game. So how do you get your hormones in balance? Because you can't measure your hormones. You can't take a test every other day to find out what your levels are. And even if you could, which hormones are you measuring? You have a ton of hormones being produced in your body. Which hormones matter, right? Okay, so if I'm telling you the name of the game is hormones, but you can't measure that anyways, but you still got to get that in balance, then what am I talking about? Well, what I'm trying to tell you is hormone health equals metabolic health. Notice I did not say metabolic rate. I said metabolic health. Hormone health is the equivalent of metabolic health. You've got to get your mitochondria healthy. You've got to get it functional, okay? You've got to get it online. So how do you do that? Okay, I'm going to give you like 3 real easy, real world tips and ways to get your mitochondria back on track, get your metabolic health back on track. I'm not talking about metabolic rate, I'm talking about metabolic health, which equals hormonal health. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Tip number one is you're going to feed your mitochondria its preferred fuel source. So what is the preferred fuel source? Well, you're on skinny on carbs, so you should know by now that I'm going to say carbohydrates, okay? Carbohydrates is the preferred fuel source of the mitochondria. Now, you can run on fats, you can run on proteins, not even really, you can't run on proteins. You're going to convert proteins into sugar anyways. So you're not really running on proteins. But you could eat a bunch of protein and convert that fuel into glucose and then run on that. You could do that. But what I'm saying to you is if you give your mitochondria a quick source of fuel, right, that it can source easily and burn easily, which is the carbohydrates, you are halfway there, okay? So what kind of carbs am I talking about? I'm not talking about complex carbs, even though you can eat that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would say if you are metabolically unwell, or you're not fit metabolically speaking, I would say that you need to give your mitochondria the simple forms, or take in the simple forms of fuel, aka glucose, fructose, sucrose. And I know sucrose is a disaccharide, but it's still a lot simpler than the polysaccharides such as starches, okay? So I would give my mitochondria the simple forms of carbs, which are the simple sugars. So where are you going to find the simple sugars? You're going to find the simple sugars in whole, fresh, ripe fruits and vegetables. That's where you're going to find it in abundance, okay? It's really important, and my tip number 2 is going to tell you why it's really important, okay? So tip number 2, why it's important to give your body the simple sugars from the fruits and vegetables. I did a video maybe about a year or so ago talking about the calorie game, okay? And what calories really represent. And in that video, I'll try to link it below if I can find it. I have to sift through. But in that video, I discuss what calories really represent. Calories are not free. There are no free calories, not even the carbohydrate calories, okay? So, and I want you to keep that in mind, because a lot of you are taking in a lot of sugars, isolated sugars in the form of table sugar, crystallized sugars, right? And I explained in that video that calories are not free, okay? Not even the carbohydrate calories. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there is a processing fee in the cell for that calorie. Your cell has to process the calorie, okay? And when it processes the calorie, it releases metabolic waste. Now that metabolic waste really translates to reactive oxygen species, okay? So that's the debt. I speak about it in the video that I did over a year ago. That's the debt that I'm talking about when I say that's the price you pay, or the processing fee, when you take in a calorie. Now, the interest rate on some of those calories is more than the others, right? So in my opinion, the interest rate on the terms on the protein calories and the fat calories, I wouldn't touch those. I would stick with the simple carbohydrate calories, okay? Because you still have the interest rate is still a tad bit too high on the starch calories, okay? Because you have to invest energy into digestion, okay? So now I'm just quickly hitting on, when you take in those calories, you got to digest, you got to absorb, and you got to assimilate. Well, the easiest one of those to process out of all of those are simple sugars, okay? Now, when your sugars get to the cell and it's being processed by the mitochondria, when it gets to the mitochondria and it's being processed, there's more metabolic waste that's being given off. If you want to offset that fee, that reactive oxygen species fee, then taking in the calories from the fruits is going to help you, because the fruits have the antioxidants it has the water, it has the phytonutrients to mitigate the metabolic waste that you are now going to be producing from your mitochondria. Remember, we're trying to get your mitochondrial health up and running. If you continuously take in the calories and you don't have the money to pay the fee that's coming from the ramped up metabolic rate that you're now inducing from the sugar, you're going to run into other problems. You're going to run into other cellular dysfunctional problems because you're not producing a load on the cell. You're producing an oxidative load on the cell. That's why fruits and vegetables are very important. This is why I highly discourage taking in massive amounts of calories, even if you're sugar fasting. It's why I discourage taking in massive amounts of calories from isolated crystal sugars that don't have any water, any deuterium depleted water. We can talk about that in another video, right? When we could get on into the nuances of water. You're not taking in any deuterium depleted water, meaning non-heavy water, right? And then you're taking in a ton of sugar, and the sugar is carrying a heavy hydrogen load. Okay, so you're just creating a lot of oxidative stress on your cells when you do that, and you don't take it in via the form of a whole food with water and antioxidants to offset that. Okay, so eventually it will become a problem, and this is why people talk about the aging when it comes to sugar and stuff like that. I'm not talking about the glycation and that type of stuff. That's irrelevant because your protein load is pretty low when you're taking in high amounts of simple carbohydrates via your fruits. However, you are creating oxidative stress on the cells, which is a non-issue if you are eating your sugars via the fruits and vegetables. Okay, so hopefully I made my point with that one. All right, the third thing I want to say, the third tip to getting your mitochondrial health back on track, or your metabolic health back on track, is the timing of your nutrient intake. I've touched on this in another video when I gave you guys the tips on how to get skinny on carbs, right? How to do sugar dieting or whatever it was. I can't remember the name of the video. I spoke about this tip, and it's very important to get your nutrient timing down pat because your cells run on a rhythm. It is tightly bound to a 24-hour cycle, right? And so the way your mitochondria runs is tightly tied to that cycle, okay? Remember, your mitochondria is the energy powerhouse of the cell. And I use air quotes because I feel like it's not the big dog, but it is, an important player. You have other very important players, like your melanin, right? Even you not melanated folks, you got melanin, okay? And we could talk about that in another video. But your mitochondria is a powerful player in this, okay? And so I just said to you, or I said to you maybe 18 minutes ago, that mitochondria health equals hormone health. Hormones run on a rhythm. Everything runs on a rhythm. Your cell runs on a rhythm. Everything in your body runs on a rhythm. Okay, so you have to honor your hormonal rhythms, right? Which means you have to feed yourself at the right time. So what does that look like? Well, I said in another video, or I said in other videos, I've said it over and over again, take in your calories during sunlight hours. Don't take in your calories after the sun goes down. Meet your caloric needs during sunlight hours. It's very important. It speaks directly to your mitochondria. You need to take your calories in during sunlight hours. It's really important because it will keep you on the rhythm, right? And hormone health it's crucial to running on rhythms. Critical. I can't overstate it. You have to pay attention to the rhythms. So your nutrient timing is important. So what does that mean? Okay, so it means you need to meet your energetic needs where they are in the moment. Meaning, don't bother counting the calories because you can't do that. Forget about that. What you can do is you can figure out your energetic needs, okay? So you can sense when you're hungry, you eat. When you're not hungry, you stop eating. You don't eat until you're hungry again, until you're actually hungry again. That's when you eat again. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're not hungry, you stop eating. You eat enough. You eat enough calories in a sitting to feel satisfied. When you first start doing this, you're not going to have it down packed because a lot of you are just not used to eating to energetic satisfaction. You're used to counting calories, which doesn't really honor your energetic needs. Okay, it honors a left brain logical approach to health, wellness, and nutrition. When now what I'm telling you to do is I'm telling you to get back in your body and figure out what your energetic needs are. Your body will communicate this. And this goes back to point number 1 where I was saying that it doesn't really make sense to run the calories game, ramping up the metabolic rate or trying to get it down. It makes no sense because that it adjusts on a daily basis even. Okay, so if you think you need 2,000 calories because you're this height and that weight, forget it, because every day it's going to be your energetic needs are going to be different. One day you're going to be stressed more than the other. You need more calories to offset that stress. Another day, it'll be hotter outside. You might need more calories to offset that. You see what I'm saying? Like, it changes every day in the moment. You need to figure out what your energetic needs are in the moment and meet your needs where you are. So you eat according to your needs in the moment. That way you don't have to worry about overeating or undereating. And again, when you first start doing this, you're probably going to undershoot because you're not used to it. You don't know what it means to be satiated, and you don't know that if you eat only 2 peaches, you're going to be starving in an hour or 2, and that's okay. That's not the end of the world. You're going to catch up. You're going to figure it out. You just go a little by little every day, and you're going to catch up and figure it out, and you will adjust. You're going to know. You're going to start running like on clockwork. You're not even going to think about it anymore. You're just going to pick up 5 mangoes, eat it, and go, because usually 5 mangoes sets you right. And on the day that 5 mangoes don't set you right, you're going to know, well, oh man, it's because I was out in the sun all day and I didn't, you're going to know these things. But give yourself some grace and some time to figure it out, okay? But nutrient timing is important. And the way you get nutrient timing down pack is to meet your energetic needs in the moment. Okay, so we're not counting calories, we're meeting energetic needs. All right, let me give you a pro tip number 4, I guess. I know I said 3, but I'm gonna give you another pro tip. The video is going kind of long, so I gotta stop blabbing so I could go on my walk. But my last pro tip to you, right, is going to be get as much sunlight as you possibly can, unfiltered, meaning no sunblock, no sunglasses. If you have access, even if the sun is not shining, I want you to go out in that sun. It's kind of important, okay? And it's the missing piece to the whole story that everybody's talking about online when they talk about sugar or carbs or proteins or fats, and nobody's really talking about the story of light. But it's very important because remember I said that you have to get your metabolic health back on track. Okay, metabolic health is tied to mitochondrial health. Mitochondrial health is tied directly to sunlight energy. That's the energy that it's sensing for the rhythm that it's running on. Because remember I said to you, your body is tightly wound to a 24-hour cycle. How do you think it picks that up? It picks up that cycle via the light energy that's coming in. Okay, that sunlight energy that comes and the sunlight energy that goes. That's why I said your nutrient timing is important, because it's directly picking up the wavelength, the light energy wavelength from the sun. This is not woo-woo stuff. This is all well-documented, researched work that's been done in terms of light biology. Your mitochondria detects red light. It will run red light. Do you know that even without carbon in your system, your mitochondria can be powered on literally without carbon, right? And the red light will donate, that's free electron energy, directly to your mitochondria. It's really important to get that sunlight in, and it's even more important to get that sunlight in the morning hours, as early as possible, into the eye, because that red light energy into the eye will turn on MSH, melanostimulating hormones. Okay, so what that means is it's going to that hormone can upregulate that HPT axis. That HPT axis that everybody wants to upregulate with sugar, which is not a bad idea. I support that. But that HPT axis that you want to upregulate with sugar, you can turn that on with light. Okay, with early morning light. That's free energy. Free energy. That is weight loss energy. Okay? Get that sunlight in. It's going to help to regulate your energetic cues as well. Okay? So that's all I got for you today. I hope that helps somebody. Don't play the calorie game, you guys. You're going to lose every time. Just go ahead and get on that metabolic health train and you'll be fine. Don't forget, feed your energetic needs with a sufficient amount of carbon via the simple carbohydrates, okay? So via your simple sugars. Offset the cost of processing those sugars. Offset that cost by taking in enough water, phytonutrients, and antioxidants via fruit and vegetables. You've got to pay the fee. Take it in at the right times during sunlight hours, where you can turn on certain HPT axes of the brain to upregulate that metabolism in the way that you're trying to upregulate it through just taking in sugars. And you'll be fine. The weight will fall off. Don't worry about it. All right? Okay, so I hope that helps someone. You guys have a great day. Bye.